Many products used in construction contain hazardous materials, such as pressurized gases, paint, caulking, and cleaners, for example. As a construction worker, you have received training and are already familiar with WHMIS. But to understand the dangers posed by the products you use and to know how to protect yourself, you need to ask yourself a few questions. First question: is the product being used hazardous? When a product is hazardous, the information is found on its label, in the form of hazard statements or pictograms, depending on the type of label. The information on the label helps to quickly identify the hazards and basic safety measures when handling or storing the product. If the label becomes unreadable or the product is transferred to another container, the employer has to create a new label. On the label, there needs to be the specific product name and not generic information like paint thinner, for example. And even though it's not mandatory, it's strongly recommended to include pictograms to facilitate risk identification. When transferring a product, the choice of container is important. It shouldn't have traces of other products inside, and you shouldn't use beverage containers. And if there is no label, do not use the product. Second question: what should I do to protect myself when using a hazardous product? You should read the product label or the safety data sheet, which contains all the information about the product. You should also follow the training provided and apply the preventive measures put in place by your employer. Take this construction adhesive tube, for example. It has a hazard pictogram on its label. The essential information for protection is found on its label. In the safety data sheet, also known as the SDS, the detailed information is found in Section 8, Exposure Controls, Personal Protection. In this section, you'll find the PPE that you need to use. If we look at this bottle of urethane, it has pictograms, but they are different because it's a consumer product, meaning it's intended for domestic use. Since consumer products are not part of WHMIS, the supplier is not required to provide an SDS, but it is still dangerous. Its label contains the information you need to protect yourself. Whether a product is part of WHMIS or not, you should always familiarize yourself with the hazards it poses before you start using it. Third question: what should be done in case of exposure? Exposure means inhalation, contact with the skin, contact with the eyes, or ingestion. In the event of accidental inhalation of varnish, for example, consult the label or Section 4 of the first aid measures in the SDS. In this situation, the worker should be moved to a non-contaminated area while wearing APR and follow all directions. An intervention plan allows for a quick response in case of exposure like this. If you need to go to the hospital following exposure, it is recommended to bring a paper copy of the SDS because it allows for a quicker diagnosis and intervention. That's why there should always be copies of the SDSs on the construction site. Fourth question: how and where should the product be stored? To know where to store a product, like gasoline for example, consult Section 7 of the label or SDS, Handling and Storage. Fifth question: what should be done in case of spillage? If a product is spilled, like a sealant, Section 6, Accidental Release Measures, tells us how to clean up the product. In this case, it needs to be cleaned up with an inert absorbent and disposed of in a suitable container. Sixth question: is a specific fire control method necessary? If there are specific preventive measures related to the risk of fire, they are found in Section 5, Firefighting Measures. You might think that water is sufficient to extinguish a fire, but in most cases, a fire extinguisher is necessary. There could also be other measures to follow. As an employer, you have responsibilities related to the products used on the construction site. You must ensure the integrity of the labels. Make sure that the SDSs are easily accessible on all job sites, and validate the procedures and PPE for each product. You must also make sure that all workers are trained according to the products used on the job site, and not forget the new workers. Every time a new product is used, you must go through these steps. As a worker, you also have responsibilities. You have to always read the label before using a product. Be attentive during training and follow established procedures. And when in doubt, consult the SDS. Always be cautious and never trivialize the risks, even if it's a product you often use. And don't forget that a product can present multiple hazards. If you have any questions or need advice, APCHQ advisors are always here to help.